Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sports Page on the Peak One Sports Network. What's going on, everybody? I'm Ashton. Here with me, as always, Chris. Rob, what's going on, Chris?
How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, man, we're moving, man. It's the weekend, getting
Yeah.
stuff done. A lot of uh, a lot of content being put up. So, I mean, hey, everybody, go and follow us. You see at Sports Page Radio at Peak One Sports on all of our social media platforms. You'll get all of our content. Also, go to our website, peak1sportsnetwork.com. We have a lot of articles and all kinds of stuff up there for y'all to enjoy.
Yeah.
Right now, coming up this week, we have the NFL draft. So we thought it would be fun to talk about some of the biggest draft busts of all time. This isn't going to be a specific list, like we're going to say number one is this. We're just going to talk about a few players and have some fun with it. You know, we have a lot to talk about coming up with the draft and Bryce Young and uh, a lot of potential put on him and everyone's saying he's the real deal. And you know, we have to be careful of that as we go through these players because I think just about all of these have been, hey, this is a no miss, uh, low risk, high reward guy. He's gonna hit, and a lot of them haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. I feel like it's a pretty good draft this year. I don't really see any. I look at like the receivers a lot. This might be one of the. I don't want to say one of the worst because they're obviously they're good players, but uh, it's not like a big star. Like usually there's like a big star that comes out each year, and it's not really one this year in this draft.
Yeah, Bryce Young's up there. I know there's a lot of questions about his height. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's 99% that he's going number one to Carolina.
Yeah.
Uh, I say that mainly because they gave up a lot to trade up to that number one spot, and
Yeah.
I don't think they had to if they were going after any other quarterback. And you're not going to
Yeah.
trade up to the number one overall pick, at least in this draft, to draft anything but a quarterback.
Yeah.
But let's get started. Speaking of quarterbacks, I know we've had previous shows talking about this topic before. Let's just kick it
Mhm.
off. This isn't in any particular order, but this number one guy is what I think, in my opinion, is the number one draft bust of all time. He didn't have uh, the hype, I guess, going into it as you know your Ryan Leafs, your let's even say Peyton Manning had a lot going in there. He wasn't a bust, but Jamarcus Russell, LSU quarterback, going to Oakland, drafted number one overall in 2007.
Mhm. Yeah.
Career statistics: he only started 25 games, 52% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. He also had 25 fumbles, uh, various, whether it was sack fumbles or he rushed a lot, and a 65.2 quarterback rating, not QBR, quarterback rating. So that I think maxes out. Was it
One
130?
150.
I'm trying to think of Madden, like
I think it was 158 point something.
158.3 is
Yeah.
that. So I know when you talk about QBR, it's like it has different factors and it goes up to 100. But
Hmm.
no, this is terrible. And my deal on him was uh, he was out of shape. He didn't try hard, which you see. I'm not saying he didn't try hard, but he didn't put in the work, which is why I think he was a bust overall. Because you know these guys in high school and college, when you're the man and you don't face a lot of adversity and you go win a national championship, you
Hmm.
kind of get uncoachable.
Yeah. Yeah. He probably got that, probably got the big head, probably just was like, he probably went his whole life being bigger and stronger, faster than everyone. So it was, he probably was like, yeah, I can go out here and just do whatever and still be successful. But that's bad. I didn't know his quarterback rating was that low.
Yeah, I need to put that in perspective. I'm gonna go play Madden later and see how low I could get a quarterback rating. Uh, Man, that's bad. Yeah, you were talking about his size. I want to say he was like 6'5".
Hmm.
I don't know, 220, 230 something. Probably more than that because I know
Yeah.
his,
I think he came out was like he came out at like 250
yeah, I know
or
his
something
weight
like
was an
that.
issue. Uh,
Yeah, and then he ended up being like almost close to 300 pounds whenever he finally, everybody gave up on him.
yeah.
That's
Maybe he
bad.
should have tried to move to tight end or something like Tebow did.
Yeah.
He was big enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they did this. If this surely this wasn't a rumor from college because why would you draft him if this was the case? But they would
Hmm.
give him blank tapes to watch on
Hmm.
different defenses and schemes to see if he's really watching them. Because and then he came back and said, "Yeah, I watched them," and they were either
Hmm.
blank tapes or there was something completely different on them just to catch him. And
Hmm.
and they caught him. You know, when you put, uh, I think it was on Draft Day, that the movie with
Yeah.
Kevin Costner. They said they would put money in the
The
playbooks
last,
to
yeah, the
see if they
playbook. Yeah.
actually would read the playbooks for their draft prospects, and that's not a good integrity move, not a good look, especially when you're a quarterback.
Right. Yeah. I love that movie. I actually just watched it. It's like the best, worst movie ever.
Yeah,
Like
if
it's
you know anything about football and scouting and
right.
drafts, you're
Hmm.
like, that's not how it goes. I mean, one in particular, one complaint I have specific, I know it's just a movie, but when
Yeah.
they get the number one overall pick, they trade for him. Spoiler alert. Uh, Hours before the draft, they're going, "Hey, I need all the film you can get on this guy." Like, I don't care if you are the Dallas Cowboys this year and have the 26 overall pick. They
Hmm.
have film and they looked at Bryce Young,
Yeah. Absolutely.
even though there's no chance they're going to get him. And even then,
Hmm.
I think they had like pick 6 or 7 in the movie.
Hmm.
And you don't have the number one pick. You don't go hours before
Yeah. That's what. Yeah.
trying to get tape and try to get all this information. You have them. You have all that information, but it's a good movie. You need the Hollywood dramatization to make it
Yeah. Yeah.
more
Yeah.
watchable.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the average person would probably watch that. I think they dumb it down. I mean, not to insult anybody, but they put it more in layman's terms for the average viewer,
Hmm.
where they could watch it. And us football fanatic geniuses, yes, sarcasm intended. We're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
one of
I mean,
your players? We'll just go
well,
back and
Jamarcus
forth
Russell.
here.
Yeah, I feel like Jamarcus Russell is number one on everybody's list. I had him and Ryan Leaf are like my two. Those are my
Yeah,
two
Ryan Leaf
biggest.
is a big one. It's
Yeah.
hard. Even I'm pretty young for that, where I wasn't following football on that, but the
Hmm.
hype was real with Ryan Leaf. It was
Yeah. Especially
Peyton
especially him
Manning or
getting drafted.
him.
Yeah, right behind Peyton Manning. Um, so you would think they would have similar careers, seeing that they got drafted. Right after each other. But yeah, I think his touchdown to interception ratio was like 14 to 36 or something like that, like
Yeah,
something terrible. Um, yeah, going number two overall. I know Jamarcus went number one, and the hype behind him, but I'm just looking at just in comparison to someone that went one pick above him being, a top five quarterback all the time, and that is, I just hear stories about him just being just a bad person, like just things like that, a bad teammate. So, um, yeah, he was another guy on my list. Him and Jamarcus Russell were the top two.
yeah, and I think he gets a lot of flack. They're comparing to Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
but I try to keep when I'm thinking of draft bust. I try to keep the you know hindsight out of it.
Hmm.
When you're talking about Sam Bowie being drafted before Michael Jordan,
Oh yeah, Michael Jordan.
uh,
Yeah.
I know Michael Jordan was a big prospect coming out, but nobody expected him to be the best player of all time.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so I try to keep that out of it. Back in the day, what did they expect him to be, uh,
Hmm.
and what it came out. And Ryan Leaf definitely checks that box. You try to separate him from Peyton Manning. I don't have this on the list, but it just made me think of it. Uh, you go to Jalen Smith with the Cowboys back in 2016. They drafted Zeke in the first round. He was a
Yeah.
second round pick, and
Mhm.
he's probably not gonna be on a lot of people's lists, but that was a bad draft pick. Um, when you just look at it in the sense that it was a second round pick and what production you got out of it, it doesn't seem like a terrible draft pick. Really,
Mhm.
his second contract was what did it for him.
Yeah.
But the fact that with his injury, you could have probably gotten him in the sixth or seventh round. It's that you used a
Yeah.
second round pick. So I try to use that uh, when determining this. All my guys are early 2000s, late 90s guys.
Mhm.
But more recently, when I think of draft busts, it's like it may not be the worst of all time, but if you drafted a guy that you could have gotten later, it doesn't matter what kind of production you get out of him. It turns out to be a bad pick because you could have waited. Um, Another player I have, I say 90s and 2000s. This one goes back to the 80s. Uh, Tony Mandarich, offensive
Okay.
tackle for the Packers.
Yeah.
Um, I know it's kind of, I mean, he didn't last in the league in the NFL very long, and so we probably didn't get a chance to really see him. But
He
he
went
was
second overall, right?
second overall. Yeah, he came
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
Michigan State, broke all kinds of records
Mhm.
there. Uh, he was one that was overhyped, and I wish I would have thought about it to see who went number one. That may have been
Mhm.
Troy Aikman,
Yeah. I can look it up
89.
real
Troy
fast.
Aikman may have been 88. I want to say Troy
Mhm.
Aikman was 89. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, he's won his career statistics. He had 63 starts in 6 seasons. So if you just uh, look at it from that point of view, 6 seasons, 63 starts. That's a little over 10 games per season.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Troy Aikman went number
Troy
one.
Aikman, yeah. That's just off
Mhm.
the top of my head. I thought about it. I was like, I wonder who went number one. I thought, oh, I think Troy Aikman was
That's
89.
that draft was incredible. So Tony Manders was second overall. Troy went number one. Barry Sanders went number three.
Ugh.
Derek Thomas number four, and then Dion number
And that
five.
hurts.
So
Again, I don't like to use hindsight in ranking
hindsight,
these,
yeah, man.
but the Packers
Wow.
being in the same division as the Lions, they could have had Barry
Mhm.
Sanders.
Man.
They could have had, and they got Mandarich. Uh, Obviously subpar play. He had attitude issues. Later it
Mhm.
came out he used some steroids, so that may where the attitude issues came from. He was
Mhm.
known as egocentric, an egocentric mentality, and he also did a lot of drugs that led to his demise in Green Bay.
Oh man.
You see that a lot, especially in the 80s and 90s, and probably even before that.
Mhm.
Um, Now, not that steroids are safe, but there's a lot of HGH. There's a It's come a long way, even though a lot of these substances are still banned in professional sports.
Mhm.
Steroids was a bad deal, especially back then, where you had the anger issues, and a lot of times that led to more drug issues
Right.
um, and breakdowns of your body, which now it doesn't as much. A lot of times, if you get the right HGH, uh, it
It's
doesn't
almost like
necessarily
they're not.
break down. In some
Yeah.
instances, it's better for you. It's just banned
Yeah.
in professional sports.
Mhm. Man, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I didn't have him on my list. My next person was Trent Richardson, um,
Yes. Oh my
running back
gosh.
from Bama. Yeah, he you know, it's just it's almost like he just couldn't get back to the line of scrimmage. Like, I know he got drafted, to the Browns, and I feel for high draft picks because they're going to a pretty bad situation usually. Um,
Yeah.
but it's he had open holes and he was just not hitting them.
Was
And
that
even in
early 2000s? What year was
2012, he got
2000?
drafted in
Oh,
2012.
okay. It was a lot later than I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he just couldn't get back to the line. And then he played in the Alliance Football League that lasted for like 2 months, and he didn't succeed there either. So like it was just, you know, I don't know what happened between him leaving the campus of Alabama to get into the league. Like he just forgot how to play football. It seemed like forgot to run football. But yeah, that was one guy that I had on my list, especially him going third overall at running back.
Yeah,
That
that's
says a lot about what they thought about
I think I think we've seen those days gone and past. Maybe in the future, if the
It's
game
over.
changes a little bit more, the running back position takes so much of a beating.
Hmm.
Um, but I like to compare it to what position it is and how easy it is, or how attainable it is
Hmm.
in free agency, how expensive it is. And the
Hmm.
fact that you could draft a running back in the fourth round, third, fourth round,
A
uh,
great running back.
and you could get a great running back without it having to be just a diamond in the rough type situation. You can
Hmm.
sign running backs for cheap in free agency. So the
Yeah.
fact that you, one, give up a lot of capital, giving up a high draft pick.
Hmm.
Two, contracts are different. You have a different cap situations with not only being a first round pick, but being a top 10 pick and even higher than that.
Hmm.
It just doesn't make sense to draft a running back that high anymore. And
Yeah.
in essence, when you, like you said, when you're getting drafted that high, the team's bad. So they're probably not in a win now mode.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
fact that running backs take such a beating now and they're almost out of their prime 4 years in.
Four. Yeah.
If
Probably
you're a
like four.
rebuilding team, by the time you're back to prominence, your running back's probably already used up. The
Yeah.
only way I could see taking a running back high is maybe like in the Eagles situation where they have multiple draft picks. They're
Hmm.
not. I mean, they were just in the Super Bowl, so they're not a rebuilding team. Uh, Hell, I'd take Bijan Robinson number. I think they have the 10th pick, number 10 overall, because you
Yeah.
still have your first round pick, and it's just
Yeah.
putting Bijan with Jalen Hurts. That
And I
would be a
agree.
nightmare. That would
Uh,
be a pass run option nightmare.
yeah. 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 Like you said,
And it doesn't hurt being
I
drafted by the Browns, or it doesn't
yeah.
help being drafted by the Browns.
Yeah. I think, yeah, especially like in that situation, I would go running back because he's, I don't, clearly the best running back in the draft. I mean, I think so. I'm probably a little biased, being from Texas, being a Texas fan, but
He's
just
he's
he's
different too.
incredible.
He's not just
Yeah.
your the
He can
next
catch
best
the
running
football.
back in the league. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's different, but
Hmm.
I don't think he's Adrian Peterson different. Not necessarily
Right.
talent wise, but gonna be productive for 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only way I would draft a running back that high is if he's like almost like a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type, where they can split out wide and get in the slot, be a receiver as well, good pass blocker. But yeah, I think drafting the Emmitt Smiths and the Barry Sanders, like those days are over. Yeah.
Yeah, as we moved away from the fullback position in general,
Mhm.
having one guy being a fullback, I
Mhm.
think we're moving into probably a hybrid running back position, more running back and receiver type. Since we're talking about the Browns, let's just go ahead and I'll throw my last one out there, or I'll skip this one for now and move to my last one. Tim Couch,
Tim Couch was on my
uh,
list. Yeah, he's
technically
on
the
my.
first. I mean, we talked about it last episode with uh, relocation and whose history is whose. Technically,
Yeah.
Tim Couch was the first player ever in the Browns organization, the new Browns.
Hmm.
They were an expansion team, but now they've hooked up with their, whatever. Now they're not. They just went away for 5 years.
Hmm.
But that's that's like David Carr type. That's a bad David Carr situation where if you're a quarterback if I had an expansion team, I would never draft my quarterback number one overall.
Hmm.
There's no point. He's going to get beat up. He's not going to last that long.
Yeah,
Building the
that's
team
smart.
around him, be bad for a few years, and then go draft my quarterback when you have the team built.
Yeah.
First overall in 1999 out of Kentucky. Started 59 games. 59.8 completion percentage, 11,000 yards, 64 touchdowns, 67 interceptions. Not, I guess, not terrible being on this list, having an almost 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio,
Yeah, that's not. Yeah. Yeah.
and a 75.1 quarterback rating. Man, that just makes Jamarcus Russell's look even worse. Tim Couch had a 75.
Tim Couch. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, that's just a bad situation for him. You know, he wasn't horrible, but he just looks bad whenever is he's just losing and he's just I mean, I guess you could say he made the most having a 1-to-1 touchdown net interception ratio, but yeah, he's definitely you have to be a bust if you go number one overall and don't succeed. So, but man, yeah, and I had a quarterback and I had a receiver. I
Yeah.
had Blake Bortles, and then I had my last one was Kevin White, and I just because they were comparing Kevin White to like Megatron, and he can be the next Calvin Johnson and deep threat. He was good in college. His senior year, he had almost 1,500 yards receiving, and then came to the NFL and he just bounced around like practice squad and just sort of fizzled out. So he was my last one.
Yeah.
Last person behind.
Megatron. I mean, I know to hype up the draft, they like to give comps, and most of
Yeah.
the time it's play
Yeah.
style. And
Mhm.
I mean, throwing it out there, comparing him to Megatron is just setting him up to fail.
Yeah, for sure.
If he doesn't have a Hall of Fame career, it's a disappointment. Blake Bortles is interesting because that was a time in the Jaguars organization where they were just terrible, and
Hmm.
I personally think it broke him because he was there for so long. They stuck with him for so long.
Hmm.
Uh, he just, in situations like that, you get new offensive coordinators, you get new head coaches, and you just never have a chance to succeed. He's one, I may be wrong, but he's one that I definitely feel if he would have been in a different situation, he would have been your Kirk Cousins, above average quarterback who makes it in this league.
Yeah.
And now I know he's messed around. I don't know if it's XFL or USFL. I know he's messed around there. Think, I
Yeah,
want to
he's
say
in
he
it.
just got signed by the Chiefs as a backup quarterback.
Oh, really?
I want to
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
I may be wrong on that. I know they just signed a backup quarterback. I think it was Blake Bortles.
I know it's Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine
They
Gabbert,
just
that's who it was. Okay.
Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I have no idea if Blake Bortles is even in the league anymore.
Hmm.
So
And
I
that's tough.
it's tough because he wasn't one that was overhyped. I don't remember there being a lot of hype other than he was a highly
Hmm.
picked draft
Yeah.
prospect. But yeah, he's one I don't look at as a huge bust. He was. I mean, you look at the statistics. He was drafted high, didn't work out. But I don't know.
I think it was just I think it's just how bad he like fell off because when he went to the AFC Championship game,
Yeah,
and then after that it was as fast as like he went downhill as fast as anybody. Like it was AFC Championship game and then out of the league just like that. So it was and then like I have a few friends that are from Jacksonville, and they just talk so badly about him, and I think that was for me that was just what it was, how fast it just went south. And I think any other quarterback, if they had any other quarterback, because they hung with the Patriots in that championship game, and any other quarterback that kind of you know I think Dak wins that game. I think Kirk Cousins wins that game, and
yeah.
I think that's what really broke him. I think.
I mean, you don't have to have the guy, the elite quarterback, to
Hmm.
succeed necessarily. I mean, for God's sakes, Eli
Right.
Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. Rex Grossman has been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But at some point, that's when it lets you down. Is you don't have the quarterback, and that was a weird Jaguars team because he's obviously not the guy. Uh,
Hmm.
you would think it'd be a better team around him to get him that far, but then they just kind of like you look at they probably didn't make the playoffs the year before, the year after that one season.
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, that's a weird year. That was a weird year. And then everybody sort of just left. Jalen Ramsey left. So like, it was yeah, that was a weird position for him to be in. I think them being up double digits in the second half, and I don't recall, yeah, they were up double digits in the second half, or maybe even the fourth quarter, and then losing
Yeah.
because he couldn't get a drive together. It was that kind of just, it probably just messed up his psyche.
And our last prospect, I wanted to put almost every receiver the Detroit Lions drafted in the early 2000s, but we could do a whole podcast episode on that.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
picked Charles Rogers, drafted second
Yeah.
overall in
Yeah.
2003. Man, I can't imagine taking a receiver that high now. That is a
Yeah.
high pick for a receiver. Drafted out of Michigan State. He let's see, he had the NCAA record for most consecutive games with a touchdown. He played just 15 games in 3 seasons with the Lions before being released in 2006. Your number 2
Oh,
overall, didn't even make a second contract, 15 games in 3
wow.
seasons.
Not even a full season of football in 3
I
years.
assume injury played a part. I didn't have that note
Yeah.
written down.
I
I
think it
assume
did.
I
Yeah.
can't remember that. 2003, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah. It said it said due to injuries and drug problems.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when the NFL, which they probably still do, it's just not concussions have kind of overlapped it, but that's when you get hurt and you get stuck on the pain pills
Yeah.
yeah, that's never a good thing. I mean, guys, let us know what y'all's overall draft busts are. Tell us what you think about our selections, what you think. Tell us we're idiots. Go ahead. We don't care. Until next time, I'm Ashton here with Chris. We'll see you later, guys.
All right. See you guys.